It implies efforts to contain an outbreak in a region or country have failed.
Negative territory. You guys all talked about it, but this is a historical day, the biggest drop we've seen since that crash in 1987.
Well, panic buying and hoarding have become big problems across the Southland. The message tonight, do not panic.
So what is a bug out bag? Now, obviously, all of you preppers and gearheads are going to be saying, I know exactly what a bug out bag is, but there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what a bug out bag is, what goes in it, how do you pack it, a lot of bullshit out there on the market. And I'm going to be clearing up a lot of that today, right now. So keep watching if you're interested in how a real operational bug out bag is packed and planned. Now, the first thing you have to think about is this is not a long-term sustainment option. This is simply like a 72-hour max kit, last ditch effort that I can grab and go if I need to. Now, what really saves you in a bug out situation is your training and your brains. It's planning. It's planning ahead. So in other words, if I know that I'm going to be operating in a semi-non-permissible environment or even a highly non-permissible environment, yeah, sure, I'll pack a bug out bag. But before I do that, I'm going to have an evacuation plan. I'm going to have a primary, secondary, tertiary plan that I can utilize and put in place if and when I need to. The plan is what saves my life, not the bag, not the gear, not what goes in the bag, not any of the freaking high-speed vests or plates or shotguns or double 10 fucking 15 AR-14s, right? That's not what we're going to be thinking about. That's not what we're going to be talking about because, frankly, I can utilize my dad's old freaking, 20-gauge shotgun and a freaking 38 revolver and still come out on top if I have the proper training for that. So it's not all the gear that's going to save you, it's the planning. Now, let's just say, for example, my plan is I'm operating, behind enemy lines in a communist-occupied state within the Union. And I know that shit's going to get rough here. Maybe this pandemic's, caving in on us. And for example, I know that within the next week, my intelligence says that probably people are going to start losing their shit and looting, and martial law is going to be declared in this particular area that I'm operating in. So I need to move, 2-3 states over. Now, my last ditch effort is going to be this bag. However, my plan is going to be to put all of the shit that I need, that I know I will need to sustain myself and my mission, and I'm going to put it in my vehicle. My vehicle is going to be my primary means of bugging out or fleeing the situation. Now, obviously, this isn't a class on packing your vehicle, but things like, extra gas. Now, this isn't the end-all, be-all. We can obviously find vehicles, siphon gas out of them. The legalities of that are a gray area, but this is not about legalities. Ammunition, a weapon, a long weapon that is, extra food, water, all of my shit that I need, my freaking clothes, right? You gotta look good. If you can't look good, you can't fight good. That's the most important thing. You need to be able to have all your shaving kits and all your bullshit that you need to make your life comfortable for wherever you're going. Now, we're not just going somewhere blindly. In this case, we happen to have a location already designated for ourselves. Let's just say that this location that's already designated for ourselves is in South Carolina. It's not, but I'm just saying that for an example. It's in South Carolina. So we know already the route that we're going to be driving. We have planned ahead and done our due diligence and figured out a primary route that we can use on the highways. We've also mapped out a secondary route that we can use that's kind of off the highways and more back roads. We've also mapped out a tertiary route that if for whatever reason some of these back roads are blocked off, we know a couple of different ways roughly of getting around those. Now, we're not going to know every single road because we haven't been there. Unless you're driving back and forth from, wherever we are to North Carolina, South Carolina, a bunch of times and actually driving those routes, then yeah, you're going to be more familiar. But in this case, we've kind of roughly mapped it out and we've made the drive like once before. We've done our due diligence and our advanced work. So we know roughly where we're going, how we're going to get there. All we need to know now is roughly how much fuel we're going to need and how much supplies we're going to need to get from here to there. We've also gone ahead and taken the liberty to get in touch with one of our contacts or friends and said, hey, you live between here and South Carolina. I'm going to need to crash at your place one night, on the way. It's too long of a drive to try to make it, however many hours that would be. So we're not going to try to make it however many hours that's going to be. We're going to crash at his place. We're going to sleep in a bed. We're going to get a home-cooked meal from his wife. And we're going to enjoy ourselves and have a couple of beers or fucking cigar or whatever your guilty pleasure is. We're going to enjoy ourselves as much as possible because we don't know how much longer we're going to be able to have those luxuries in our life. So we're not eating fucking MREs and sleeping in the back of this Jeep. That's not what we're doing. We don't need to do that. So we're not going to, because we've gone ahead and studied things like social engineering, and we know how important it is to establish contacts along the route from here to there. We've established this guy, we've vetted him, we know that he's a good guy and he's not gonna rat us out to, fucking whoever, right? We know that he's safe, this is a safe location, a safe house, so to speak, and this is where we're gonna stay. So then we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna go to our, secondary location, in this case in South Carolina. Now, once we get there, we've already stocked it ahead of times. We've got a month worth of food and water. We've got a nice bed, a couple of beds for me and my friends. And we've got everything roughly that we need there. The only things that we're gonna be taking with us are things like identification, any medication that we need, passport, things like that I have here that I need there. Not all of the accoutrements, accessories, a laptop, my iPad, whatever the fuck, phone chargers, things like that are all gonna go in these bags. It may go in here. Probably if you're using the laptop for some type of sensitive work or something like that, and you need it the fuck with you can't afford to leave it behind, sure, it'll go in your bug out bag. But anything that you don't need to sustain yourself on the way from, let's just say, this vehicle stops working in Connecticut, and we need to get fucking from Connecticut then all the way to South Carolina. Well, we're not gonna probably make it there using just the bug out bag. We're going to seek alternate means of transportation, which again, in here, we've got cash. We've got cash to bribe a motherfucker if we need to get from there to there. Hey buddy, I know that you're freaking, looks like you're kind of hard up right now, whatever. You go into a bar, you go into wherever, and you start talking to somebody and you get another vehicle or a mode of transportation. If you can't do that, there's buses, there's other ways of doing it. But worst come to worst, we can always grab this and go. Now, the nice thing about it is this isn't a grid down situation. So Pandemonium hasn't swept us yet. Why? Because we're leaving early. We're leaving a week ahead of time before things get fucking crazy. Hence the reason that we're going to be able to have options. Options are the most important thing here. So it's not like we have to go get this, put it on camouflage, and fucking hide in the woods like a lunatic. That's not what we're doing. We have a plan ahead of time and we've thought this all out. We have advanced intelligence from our sources and contacts that things are going to get bad within a week, maybe two. So we're leaving ahead of time and we're going to go ahead and utilize our evacuation plan or our bug out plan. We're going to utilize our bug out bag as a last ditch resort to go ahead and get from point A to B or anywhere in between to point Bravo. All right, so we found ourselves in the middle of point A to B. Our vehicle is busted down. We don't have the capability to fix it. We don't have the advanced training or knowledge to be able to do so. Nobody in our group does. So at this point, we know that we can safely make it to South Carolina within the next day on foot. We're close enough that we can go ahead and utilize this. We've gotten together and mapped it out. And again, we, ahead of time, learned how to read a fucking map because we're gonna carry a map, a protractor, a compass, some pencils, some things like that in a map kit. But we all took a 2-day land navigation course and we practiced in between that course and now. We did it about once every couple months, which isn't great, but it's better than nothing, because if we hadn't done that, we'd either be relying on our fucking iPhones or nothing, and we'd be lost, and we'd have to ask for directions, and we don't want to ask for directions when we're all freaking carrying our bags around and looking kind of suspicious. Right now, things aren't that crazy, but they're crazy enough that we need to go right now. So what we're gonna do is get ready to go. Now, I've got this nice jacket on, it's great. It's a little waterproof, it's nice and thick, but it's sun out right now. And I know that when I put this bag on, I'm gonna be getting hot. So what I'm gonna do is take it off and I'm gonna zip up all my pockets, anything that I have stored in here. I'm gonna make sure I have a winter hat in here, a pair of gloves on the other side. And what I'm gonna do is roll this up and pack it on the outside of my bag. So also, the state that we were operating in is you're not allowed to conceal carry, but I've gone ahead and started concealed carrying already. Now, you can think about this in two different ways. Number one, if you run into any law enforcement, you're bound to go to jail. That's gonna take you directly from your bug out location and put you in jail. That's not what you want. Number two, you can think about it like, hey, you know what? Shit's really that dire at this point that we need to go ahead and do it. But in any case, what I'm gonna do at this point, because we're moving from a vehicle-borne operation to a foot operation, we're more likely to get seen, we're more likely to have attention drawn to us. So I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna go ahead and stow it. Now the thing that I like about these, and the reason that I bring this up, is for exactly this reason. You can take it off quickly and stow it. Now, I'm not anticipating any, enemy contact or anything along the way. I don't need this readily available on me at this time. If I had something like this, where it was attached to me, I'd have to take my belt off and blah, and then put it away. So it's just not the type of thing. Now, granted, this is a paddle holster, same type of deal. However, this is more concealable. Now, when we're talking about this kind of operation here, number one, it's not the type of thing where you can be running around with fucking guns. Number two, it's the type of thing where you want to go low profile as possible. So anything that makes you look more overtly military operator, anything like that, it's got to go. It's got to come off of your person and go into your bag. So again, even with this hat, it's Coyote Tan. It's got on the back, Special Forces standard issue. I don't want that. I don't want people to think I'm a Special Forces bro or a military bro or a police or anything. So this is gonna come off, and again, same thing. It's gonna go in my bag. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab my bag. There is a right and a wrong way to put these things on. Now it depends. If you're putting this on from on the ground, there's a certain way where you can lift it up, put it on you from over your head like that and don it. I like to personally, if I have the option, either sit down with it on and then stand back up, or if I'm, mounting it from a vehicle like this, what I'll do is just do something like this, nice and comfortable, and I'll put the straps over me. Now, when I go ahead, start getting this thing ready, something to think about here for those of you who are not avid backpackers or don't have any of this experience already. These waist straps, you want it low and tight on your waists. These are gonna be carrying the majority of your load, the waist, not these. It gets really uncomfortable if you want all of the load up here on your waist. It starts, whoa, and you start, and your shoulders get really tired. So I am gonna go ahead, lean forward and tighten these. I'm not gonna cinch them down though. I might cinch them down progressively a little bit more as I start walking, but what I am gonna cinch is this. Now, another reason that I showed you about how I took this off is you'll notice I'm not really having access to that right now. So something that you can do is go ahead and throw this bad boy on here if you think you're really going to be needing it, right? If not, what you can do is, if you need access to this immediately, or you think you might need access to this immediately, you can either do a Mexican carry, you can have some kind of, what is it? I forget what they call it, but like basically a dick holster or something like that. You can also use a chest rig, something like that, jacket over it, light shirt. Anyways, there's a number of ways that we can do that. In this case, we're saying, hey, look, we don't anticipate taking any contact. We're gonna just go ahead and put these in our bags so that we're not legally liable. Now, we're almost ready to go. Something to think about here. We're gonna have to leave the majority of these supplies behind. We do anticipate being able to come back and get them. So, what we're gonna do is park the car in a best location as possible. Now, either that's gonna be like a public parking lot, maybe of a Walmart or something. Somewhere where they're not gonna ticket us or tow us for long-term parking. Another thing that we're gonna do is, if we don't have that option available, we're gonna try to hide the car. We're gonna hide it, we're gonna roughly camouflage it crudely. We're gonna put it in a place where it's not that like strange to look at a car being parked there. We really don't want any attention drawn to this because we've got gas, we've got ammunition. Look, we've got we've had to leave our long arm behind in here. We can't carry it with us like fucking Rambo all over the place while life still goes on. So we are going to have to cover this up and cover it up with other bags and shit, because we don't want anyone breaking in here and stealing this. Another good reason to have your windows tinted so people can't see in the first place. But we don't want any undue attention drawn to this car. We might not combat park it where it's facing out. We might park it this way, as low profile and discreet as possible, because again, we've got things in here like my fucking laptop and things that I want. So if possible, we are anticipating being able to come back with a vehicle that we've already staged ahead of time, or a vehicle that we can borrow from one of our contacts in country or in the other state that we're going to, that we've already been there, talked to people, gotten to know some people, and made some friends. We can borrow a vehicle, requisition a vehicle, or maybe we have our own stage there. So we can come back for this stuff. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make everything look as neat and tidy as possible, park it in a location, and off we go. Right, so we're gonna go ahead and lock that vehicle up, if we haven't done so already, and retain our keys. Obviously that's gonna be important so we can fucking drive back to our place. Now, either me or we, if I happen to be with a group, even better, we already know that this is the way that we're gonna have to go. We're gonna make a shortcut through these woods, and on the other side there's gonna be, I don't know, let's just say some back roads or whatever. Now, obviously we're in these backpacks, so we don't wanna draw too much attention, so we might go ahead and just skirt in the wood line of the back roads. You know, we don't want to be seen if possible. We don't want undue attention drawn to us. So skirting just inside the tree line on the back roads is good, but staying relatively close to the wood, to the streets or back roads is also a good idea, because we're going to utilize that anyway. Remember, we had a plan, and in our plan, our secondary means of, you know, bugging out or going to our location was along these back roads. So we're going to stick on them, but whenever possible, we're gonna skirt inside, just inside the tree line. So we've gone ahead and come to a big open field. Now we have two choices. We can either cross this large open field, or we can kind of take a little bit of a longer route and go and skirt through the woods. That's exactly what we're going to do, because we don't want to expose ourselves in the open. Now again, we're not worried about taking contact, but what we are worried about is potentially a landowner, someone who lives in this house, calling the fucking cops, saying there's a bunch of sketchy dudes going with backpacks, and I don't know what the fuck's going on, and they come, and then it's a whole thing. So we're just going to kind of skirt. We did come just briefly through here, but it didn't expose ourselves for more than maybe 30 seconds. So that's what we did. We're gonna go along here, try to stay inside the wood line and tree line, and then take just a 5-minute longer path. Now, I don't care how much your feet are hurting at this point, how much you're wanting to have a nice drink of water. There's plenty of time to relax and take 5. But now is the time. You need to go ahead and have the wherewithal to know that, yes, I do need to skirt in the tree line. I can't just take that, you know, shave those 5-10 minutes off by crossing in the field. That would be foolhardily. Come on. So something to think about here is, obviously we're not really concerned about being tracked at this point, but if we were concerned in any way, shape, or form that we might be being tracked, things like this is kind of a dead giveaway. I stepped here on this plant, and then it's depressed down like that. And it's actually kind of depressed in the general location that I'm headed. So just things like that, avoiding things like that. If you are at some point trying to evade, and you know, these bug out bags, that's one of the things that they're used for, is evading capture. You can go ahead and think about things like that. Maybe just put your foot somewhere else. Now, a good tracker is a good tracker, but you don't want to make it any easier for them than it already is going to be. Now, if you'll notice the footwear I've got on, obviously it's waterproof enough. They're nice Timberland boots, and a nice thing about these is they're very civilian looking. They're not threatening in any way, not military. You know, whenever we look at surveillance and things like that and trying to size a man up, you look at his shoes. That's one of the first things you kind of look at. So I wear Timberlands for a specific purpose, is because they blend in. And I do want these versus if I was wearing my fucking Nikes. When I cross that small stream, my shoes and my feet would be soaking wet and I'd be miserable. So having a nice pair of broken in Timberlands or civilian type of hiking boot is really key when it comes to going through the woods or doing any type of rucking or hiking. All right, so finally we've come to what's actually going in this bad boy. Now, first things first, you're gonna see a tarp and you're gonna see a sleeping pad. Now, for those of you, again, who aren't avid campers, hikers, who don't have a lot of experience doing this type of stuff, you know, a lot of people tend to think of the sleeping pad as like, oh, it's for comfort. Well, no, it's not only for comfort, especially in the wintertime, but even in the summer. You know, when you're sleeping out here on the forest floor, if that's something you're forced to do, then this is gonna go ahead and prevent all of the heat from being sucked out of your body and into the ground. It has a large tendency to like really make you cold at night. Not to mention the fact that it does add just a little bit of padding. We're all used to, you know, sleeping in nice warm beds, and when you have to sleep out here in the woods, let me tell you something, it sucks. I hate it. I hate it. But having something like this just makes it a little more bearable, not to mention the fact that you don't want to be too cold. Now, we also have our tarp. This can double as a couple of different things. Now, obviously, you're all thinking, yeah, it's for shelter. Well, it definitely could be. But even if we're not going ahead and rigging this up in some kind of like, you know, tube tent fashion or teepee style, we can also use this as a bivvy. Now, a bivvy is a really necessary thing when it rains and you're sleeping out here, even though you've got your sleeping bag or whatever, even if it's a wiggy or some type of sleeping bag that you can sleep in it when it's wet, that's miserable. So going ahead and being able to wrap up in something like this is definitely key, not to mention the fact that, you know, if you're forced to sleep somewhere with poison oak, poison ivy or whatever, having this to put along the ground is definitely a good option. So this is so many different things. It can add warmth as well, but a good tarp and a large tarp is really essential when it comes to being able to perform well. Now, another thing, directly on the outside, we've got a couple sources of water. Now, this particular water bottle here is metal, so I can go ahead and boil my water if I need to. Now, there's only so much water you can carry with you, and this is one of our weak points here, is water. It's heavy, and there's only so much you can take with you. Now, what I say to guys is, in this type of situation, if you're going about, you know, look, you're getting from point A to B and you're skirting through suburban neighborhoods or something like that, or even fairly rural places, you can probably manage to resupply yourself from a faucet, from a tap. Maybe there's a gas station restroom where you can go and use the tap to go ahead and resupply on water. Maybe there's, you know, a spigot in a farm, and at night you mark that and say, I can go here and get fresh, clean enough water and go ahead and refill my water bottles. So it's not the type of thing that you necessarily have to boil water, but it's such an important thing that you need at least one way to go ahead and do that if that's the last ditch resort. So I'm not only gonna be carrying this metal thing, I'm also usually gonna try to have a canteen and a canteen cup. In addition to that, I'm also gonna have a secondary method of purifying my water, whether that's a life straw or just iodine tablets. Now, we'll talk more about that, but don't get too wrapped up in all of this, because it's not 1000% necessary to have all of this different kind of water purification shit. It's just not. Generally speaking, you're gonna be able to resupply water in some type of semi-normal way, but you do want one or two secondary methods just in case, because it is that important. Now, again, we're gonna keep all of our most important shit on the outside. In this case, I took, you know, my passport and some paper, and I've got some currency in here that we can use to bribe people or buy shit that we need off the grid. I've also got some gift cards and you know, my credit cards and all my shit in here that I need. So these are all my documentation. I'm gonna leave that in here, and I might even put it in an extra pocket just so it's double secure. Now in this pocket here, I've got my shit kit. Now, like I said, hopefully it's the type of situation where you're not gonna be out here too long, and maybe you can even go ahead and use like a gas station restroom or rest stop or something like that. But if you are forced to grab this kit and go, there is definitely a possibility you're gonna have to shit in the woods. So when it comes to that, there's a couple of things that we need that I keep in my shit kit. Number one, obviously, the gold item at this point, toilet paper. Another thing is hand sanitizer, another gold item at this time. So another thing is moist towelettes, and I'll also usually keep in here some baby wipes, because when it comes to shitting in the woods and camping out, having baby wipes on you is the fucking shit, and I love it. Now, another thing is a shovel, a small shovel. If you were really concerned about keeping a low profile, you could obviously like paint this olive drab, fucking put mud on it, but I don't understand why you really need to have a camouflage shovel that bad. Not to mention the fact that you drop it and it's at night, you know, a black or OD shovel is gonna get lost. This thing, you can at least see it. So that's my shit kit. It makes life a lot more comfortable. Now, I don't want to take a shit, wipe my ass, and then not have anything to clean my hands with. Then I go to eat an MRE and I get fucking sick. And I spend the next like 3 days shitting and losing fucking time and losing fucking energy and water, which is a valuable commodity. So that's why the hand sanitizer is so important. Trash bags. Now, obviously, we talk about we're gonna be eating things like Mountain House, MRE, canned goods, whatever. We don't necessarily wanna just leave that around. Number one, it's rude. You don't wanna litter. Number two, you don't want people being able to track you. And we discussed kind of briefly about that. And even if nobody is tracking you, it doesn't matter. You wanna be able to take all of your shit and be able to throw it away. Now, generally speaking, we'll be able to find some kind of trash can that we can throw this out in. So any of our trash, look, take it with you. That's why we're gonna leave a little bit of extra room in here to take our trash with us. Not to mention the fact that as we utilize supplies, we're gonna have more and more room. Trash bags are good for that, and we're also going to discuss in further detail why we need more trash bags. However, for now, I may or may not have mentioned about mission critical gear. Now, obviously, any mission critical gear that you're gonna need, such as your laptop or external hard drive, whatever the fuck it is that you're utilizing, you're gonna need to take that with you if you really need it. So in this case, I kind of consider a radio a piece of mission critical gear. While it does take up a little bit of weight, not even really a pound, but it does, you know, add a little extra something. What this is good for is intelligence. If you're sat there, you know, at night, wherever you are, and you've got some time, it might help to figure out what the fuck is going on in the outside world and around you. You know, is there some kind of fucking incident in the place that you intend on going to? Is there a warrant out for your arrest because sketchy guys with backpacks are walking around and now they're looking for you and you've heard about it on the news, right? So having a little AM FM radio is great. Plus this one, you know, has a flashlight and it's hand crank. So you go ahead and charge it that way. You don't got to worry about extra batteries and shit like that. Now, is it 100% necessary? No. But is it helpful to have intelligence? That's what the name of the game is here. Now on this side of my backpack, and again, we keep this shit handy because this is the shit that we're immediately gonna be utilizing. We're not gonna have to put our bag down. We can have our buddy reach in here, or we can reach back, or we can put our bag down for 2 seconds and go ahead and utilize whatever supplies we immediately need in here. So I've got my map kit. Now in here, I have a flashlight. Now, you don't need to get one of these like Vietnam style military flashlights, but the reason why I did so is because it's got the ability to change lenses. It's got the red lens on it. Now, obviously at night, you don't want to be having to sit there, look at your map with a white light, ruining your night vision and attracting a lot of undue attention to what's going on around you. You don't want people, you know, in these houses over here, if there happen to be some, to say, what the fuck is that light out in the woods? There's people out there. No, you want to be able to be very discreet, and even if you have to, you can take this tarp, put it over you, and then use your red light to go ahead and read that map and figure out where you're going and where you need to go and where you have been and all of that. Again, compass, some pencils. I've got some different colored pencils to mark different types of routes. I've also got, I don't have in here, which I should have, is a protractor, but again, if this is something that you know that you're going to be needing to do, take all of this shit, get it ahead of time, do your research and get your training, because if you don't have the proper training to know how to read a map, use a protractor, you use a compass, shoot your azimuth, all that shit, then it's for nothing. You might as well throw it away because it's not going to serve you any fucking purpose. So that's why I say the most valuable fucking thing that you can have is training. all of this shit is for nothing if you don't have the right training, which is what we're doing here, but I can't give you all of the information about land nav and all of that fancy shit that you should have already probably been doing. So up in here, now, this is where we're gonna keep some of our shit that we need. Obviously, we talked about that. A headlamp, we talked about the red light. Well, this is a white light. Obviously, you're moving around at night. There are times where it's totally acceptable to go ahead and utilize a white light. And to have it on your head and not have to fucking worry about holding it, it's helpful. Again, magazines, maybe I keep my pistol up here, whatever I need. If I did have some kind of compact long arm that I could throw in here, maybe my, my AR mags or whatever the fuck, up in here, that if I did get into a firefight, throw this down, military style, get under it. Here, I've got my mags readily available to me. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep my snacks. So I'm not only gonna have like food in here to sustain myself, but while I'm on the march, I'm gonna need some fucking snacks. I get hungry and I don't wanna stop necessarily and have to like make myself, a heater meal or whatever. So I've got some energy bars in here and, just light things that I can eat along the way. I've also got some creature comfort items like my freaking Zyn pouches. I fucking love these things. So I'm not gonna go without it. If I can, I'm gonna have some of these with me, probably more than just one. Now, another thing I keep in here, like I said, the iodine tablets, should I need them, at least I have them available to me. They don't take up that much space or weight. And with those, what I always utilize is some little packets of drink mix, because these things make your water taste kind of shitty and funny. So if you can mix some drink mix in with it, not only does it give you those extra electrolytes and sugars that your body's gonna need, but it also makes your shit a little bit more pleasant while you go. Also, some Pedialyte. Now, if this is the summertime, obviously we have a little less gear that we have to worry about in the summer, but we do definitely have to worry about, dehydration and stuff like that, not only in the summertime, but also in the winter. So I take some Pedialyte packets that I can just dump in my water and get that zinc and those minerals and those freaking electrolytes that my body is craving, so I'm not losing speed, losing time, and feeling shitty. Now I keep a little medical kit. Now people get wrapped up in the medical kits. You don't need a whole fucking shitload of medical supplies with you, Mostly what you're gonna be needing is things like moleskin to treat blisters, little band-aids to go ahead if you get a pricker bush and it scrapes you. You obviously don't want that exposed, so to go ahead and throw some antibacterial jelly on with a Q-tip and go ahead and cover that with a bandage or band-aid, that's good. Also some things like a little small ace wrap, and also maybe even just a little small, gauze roll. But it doesn't need to be a fucking EMT kit, guys, but it just needs to get you from point A to point B. I've also got a nice extra bottle of water in here. I might throw more in if I had them available to me, because the more the merrier. Right now we've gotten down to brass tacks and we're getting inside the actual bag. Now, I've got rain gear here. Typically I tell people try to avoid any overtly military looking shit. Now this in itself isn't too overtly military looking. It's a rain parka, and it's a little bit thicker because during the winter you want as thick as possible, and during the summer I might utilize something that's A, more lightweight, and B, thinner and cooler. So I keep that and a pair of Gore-Tex pants on the top of my bag. Now why do I keep it on the top? Not necessarily because I think I'm going to be immediately needing this, although if I need it, I need it. But if my pack happens to get wet, rain starts coming in, I want this to at least buffer things and keep it a little bit more dry inside my pack. I've been out operating in the field and I've had my shit get wet and I'm wet and everything's wet and it sucks. So that taught me, look, one time where I wasn't having the luxury of having Gore-Tex pants, this shit sucked, guys. My pack got wet, I was wet, I had to keep operating out in the wet, and I hated it. So now, I don't even care. Yeah, these are Woodland Camo Gore-Tex pants, but I'd way rather have these than nothing. And it's not like the whole thing is Woodland Camo, it's this and that. You could easily pass yourself off for some type of hiker who just happened to get this stuff at an Army Navy store. It's not too overtly military, but if you could get something that's more blue, navy blue or subdued, even khaki or something like that, even better, but I would avoid getting, you know, bright yellow, bright orange, whatever, because you don't want to stick out like that. You just want to blend in and go kind of with the baseline with that. Now, moving on, what I've got is all my shit here in a trash bag. Now, you can easily go ahead and spend the money and get like nice dry pack covers, right? Or pack inside the pack stuff to insulate and waterproof your shit. But what you can also do on the cheap is a fucking garbage bag. Now, obviously, you would want to turn it the other way and tighten it up and keep more of these with you for the inevitability that this gets torn. But the fact that you have all of your shit in this, even if it's in waterproof bags in itself, is gonna make your life so much better, because when your shit gets wet, it sucks in the woods. Now inside here, I've got 24 hours worth of MREs. Now I could stretch this as long as I needed to. We don't need as many calories as we typically ingest every day. So all of the shit that's in here, it's like 3 meals, maybe even 4 if you stretch it. You could stretch it longer if you needed to. It does take up weight, and again, if I was really expecting to need to go, I would field strip this shit. Now, field stripping is basically when you take off the excess packaging and you take out anything that you don't need or you don't like, leave it behind. Now, in this case, I want as much food and calories as I can get, so I'm gonna try to take as much as I need or as I can get, but I will take off the excess packaging of anything that I can. Maybe I'll duct tape it up tight so it doesn't take up too much space. So that's field stripping, and I do that with all of my MREs. I also have a Mountain House, nice garlic herb, mashed potatoes, delicious, really gonna be a pick-me-up when I do get to make this stuff at night or whenever I need it. Now, I have another bag with my shit in here, and I'm gonna tear it for right now, but I would never do this in the field. Just for quickness and expediency, I'm gonna show you that I have a pair of darker blue jeans. I don't want light blue jeans. Yeah, obviously I was going around not expecting to have to come here, and these blue jeans are a little bit light, but these are darker. It's a little bit better for just blending in, you know, if you're skirting in the tree line or whatever, or just out and about. Darker is always a little bit better to go with the baseline. So I've also got an extra kind of warmer overshirt here. It's a little bit thicker because it is, you know, springtime now, and we do kind of see the temperature drop at night, so more of this layers, the better. Now, speaking of layers, I've got a nice skull cap here. It's warm. I've also got one in my jacket pocket, but I keep an extra because 1 is done and 2 is 1. So again, I've got in here in a plastic bag, and I might even double plastic bag this, extra pair of underwear, 2 pairs of socks, and a thermal. So these are really key. Now, I remember one time I was out doing a field training exercise and I got soaked to the bone. It was like a fucking hurricane, and I was actually standing sentry duty with my buddy Santiago, and we got fucking soaked, and we actually sought out shelter in a barn that night. Now, I had an extra pair of underwear, pants, and socks in my rucksack. And when everyone else was like shivering and like, oh, this sucks, I went ahead and got out my fucking extra underwear, pants, and socks from my dry bag that was double bagged, and I put that shit on and got in my sleeping bag inside the barn. I can't tell you how much I felt like a king that night. Until, you know, a couple hours later, we had to go out again and get soaked. But for those couple of hours, I got great sleep, and that's why I go ahead and pack extra underwear and socks and clothes at all times. And a complete extra change of clothes can be such a lifesaver, especially in the winter, but even in the spring and fall. It does get chilly, you don't want to get sick, and you really want to be comfortable whenever you possibly can. So that's going to be in there. And lastly, granola. These things are delicious. Again, Mountain House granola with blueberries and milk. Now, last thing here, I've got my sleeping bag, my sleep system. So I've got my sleeping pad, my tarp, my sleep system. Now, in an ideal world, maybe I'd go ahead and utilize an actual bivy bag. And they don't take up that much weight. But I didn't feel like taking it out of my fucking storage closet and going through all this shit. So what I did was I grabbed this sleeping bag, and it's really nice. It's dark, it's black, you know, it's not gonna stand out too much. It's not red and blue. It is rated for for a fairly low temperature. I forget the exact temperature, but I wouldn't have bought it if it was some bullshit. So this is going to be able to keep me warm. Obviously, if it was the dead of winter, you probably need even, you know, a little bigger one than this. That takes up more room in your pack. So there's just, in the winter time, there's more shit to pack. In the summertime, there's less shit you have to pack, but it all kind of eventually blends in and ties in once you figure out kind of the base of what you need in the winter and the base of what you need in the summer. You're going to be all set to operate from there. So again, it's not a whole lot of shit, guys. If you really look at it, like, that's it. And you've got that's it. You've got a jacket here. So yeah, it may feel a little bit heavy when you put it on, but it shouldn't feel that heavy. And again, you should have practice. You should be able to go out and spend a night or two out in the woods sometime, either around you or for a course. Knowles does courses, you know, you can do things like that. Obviously, One Shepherd, they've got their Alpha company out in West Virginia now, and their Bravo company out in the Ozarks. So that's a week of training that you can do, utilize all this type of shit. But it takes training and know-how to go ahead and do this shit efficiently. This is kind of to show you guys that all you guys that are putting fucking hatchets and fucking like all this crazy shit and like flares and all that shit, it's ridiculous. And when I see you waddling around with your bug out bag, it's like, bro, you know that guy's not no experience doing it, and it's just ridiculous. So this is kind of an extensive bug out bag, but this is really what you need. You don't need much more than this at all. So, and again, it's mission specific. So if you're operating in Alaska or Utah, you know, you might need slightly different things than here. If you're operating in Arizona or, you know, Nevada, you might need slightly different things. If you're operating in fucking, you know, the mountains of Pakistan somewhere, it's just kind of situationally dependent what you need. But this is kind of the base of what you will need: food, water, shelter, and training and knowledge. Knowledge is the most important thing. So listen, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more before we close out, but for now, stand by. We've got some important messages coming out before I close this out, but I'm going to pack up all my shit, and as I'm humping it back to my South Carolina freaking bug out location, we'll talk more. Stand by. So another thing I want to just briefly mention is I would highly encourage you, whenever possible, to leave your pack as intact as possible, because putting all your shit back in it and fucking zipping everything up and putting it back together is always a pain in the ass. I don't care how many times I do it, how many times I've done it, it still sucks. I still hate it. So if you can go ahead and leave your shit in your pack, don't ever like take it all out and say, I'm camping here tonight. Like, no, leave it all in your pack, because you never know when you're gonna have to fucking grab it and go. So even if you are camping, you know, look, take your fucking thermarest out, take your sleeping system out, but leave all of your food and your shit in your bag. Because like I said, number one, it sucks to fucking repack it, and number two, you never know when you're going to have to grab it and go. Quickly about the pack, the chest strap is kind of important. I mean, I don't always use it, but it does kind of, if you can get it set up right. Sometimes they're a little too high and they're fucking annoying, so I don't use it. But if you can get it right, it's meant to go across your chest here and kind of balance out everything. That way, when you're shifting and walking around, it doesn't fucking, you know, tweak your back or tweak your psyche all out by having shit shifting around. It can make it a little bit more comfortable to have that shit here level across your chest, and then here displays down on your hips. Now, another thing I like to do is I like to keep a small blade down here, and obviously this isn't not like a utility blade. The reason being is if something happens, and something happens quickly within my OODA loop, I'm not going to try to fist fight the guy with a backpack on. It's a losing battle. So I want to be able to take him out quickly and move on quickly. So again, that's why I mentioned about, you know, the Serpa holster here. If you're going to be going in the woods and you're not really worried about being seen with a firearm, that's a good idea. But again, an option with less noise and an option just to go ahead and end that fight quickly will, you know, look, weapons is how it's ended quickly. If I happen to be walking and someone pops out in front of me and tries to fucking hit me or choke me out, well, boom, I'm gonna get him quick and keep moving on. So I did just want to discuss that. You know, after all, Gutter Fighting Secrets, I talk about hand-to-hand combat quite a lot. So while you are utilizing a pack, wearing a pack, that's not the time where you want to be trying to box the guy or grapple with the guy and, you know, do a double leg takedown. That's the time where a knife comes out and you end the fight like that. So I do typically do that. Now it is a little bit like high profile. You can hide this, maybe you have a neck knife or whatever, but when you are in your pack, you don't fucking try to bother with boxing with the guy. If he's attacking you and it's an unknown threat, do what you have to do. Another thing that we can think about here is, while we are packing shit around, you know, the way that we pack our shit makes a big difference as to how we're feeling, how tired we're getting. So if you can pack your shit in a way that it's not shifting around in your pack and it's balanced, that's going to be so helpful. So again, a big reason to put your fucking pack on every now and again, go for a hike in the woods, and even sometimes maybe camp out overnight and see how you do. Training ahead of time is the most valuable tool you can have in your arsenal. Live.
You're already live.
We're live. Listen, guys, I appreciate you checking out my YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching this all the way through. Honestly, I don't ever toot my horn. However, this stuff is the most practical stuff. Some of the more practical shit that you're going to find here on YouTube. There's a lot of guys out there, like I alluded to earlier, who are claiming you're going to need to bug out with your plate carriers and your helmet, your nods, and all of your fucking crazy tactical bullshit that you don't really need. And they're dead wrong. And that's impractical advice. You don't need, 3 different sources for fire and freaking hatchets and all of this crazy stuff. What I laid out before you in this video is more than enough. It's more than you'll probably need. And like I say, it's more than you'll probably need. In all reality, you'll probably be able to get in your vehicle and make it from point A to B safely. But really, when it boils down to it, the most practical piece of advice I can give you is a plan. Whether you're bugging out from here to, or from where you are to your friend's house, or to your parents' cabin or beach house, now wherever is safe, right? So the most practical portion of this whole thing would have been where we discussed, having an advanced intelligence, making contacts, sources, and knowing what's going on around you and having a solid plan. It's not too late to plan. I realize I'm coming at you right now during the midst of this crazy pandemic, one of the crazier pandemics that any of us certainly have ever seen, or probably the craziest. And kind of the time for advanced training is over. Now, unfortunately, like right now, shit's kind of hit the fan and starting to potentially really hit the fan. So you can't go now at this point and like start training at One Shepherd and get your small unit tactics. You can't go to Knowles and get your 2-3 day land nav course and your woofer certification and all of that. Now, hopefully this will calm down and this will inspire you to go to places like that when you have time and resources and get that proper training. However, if you haven't been doing that until now, look, it's not the end of the world. You can still watch this YouTube channel, certainly, and other respective YouTube channels that will show you basic information about this stuff, but hands-on is the way to do it. Also with planning, you can go and if you're interested, honestly, there's not a lot of YouTube channels you can go and learn about how to do that advanced planning, map routing and all of that stuff, secondary, tertiary routes, all of that. But if you're interested in more of that, highly practical type of stuff, throw it in the comments down below. I'd be happy to make a video about it. Now, with that being said, I do thank you again for checking out my YouTube channel and looking at this. And if you have any questions, certainly throw them in the comments below for the algorithm. That would help. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd greatly appreciate it. The more subscribers, the more algorithms, the more we can piss off Google in any case. So let's do it, guys. Let's go ahead and stay safe out there. Right now is not the time to be messing around, guys. We need all of our warriors out there. Occupy your respective leadership positions. Take care of your people and take care of yourselves. So until next time, guys, please remember that you are your first and last line of defense. And Lord willing, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, mother flowers.